Welcome to Chris Parkin Shooting Sports. Tonight I'm out shooting the rimfire and I'm using a primary arm 6-24 by 50 first focal plane scope. I love reviewing scopes on rimfires, especially this rimfire, because I can shoot so many different distances. I can test all the features and functionality of the scope with low quality, low cost ammunition, and then if I want to, move on to the high quality, high cost ammunition and really push the limits on range, because that's the joy of rimfire shooting, and that's the joy of first focal plane scopes with excellent dialing capability. You can click away, you can make all the adjustments you need to, and you can really enjoy multi-distance target shooting. So now that you've seen it in use, let's look at some more of the details about this primary arms GLX scope. Magnification is 6-24 times, and it's got a winged collar here to adjust through the magnification. You don't feel any motion inside, and there's also quite a lot of knurling on the sides. The objective lens is 50mm, which keeps it fairly compact and isn't too large, although this is never going to be a low light scope with only a 50mm objective lens, whereas a 56 would give it that little bit more, but this is more of a target and long range precision scope. Both of the turrets have a locking facility, so you press a small button at the back and they automatically lock at 0. That's the same for both windage and elevation. Now, looking at windage first, there's 5 milliradians on this scope, left and right of centre, and there are also multiple turns, and the actual locking button will click each time you go around a complete turn. Going to the elevation turret, there are 10 milliradians available in the up direction, and there are also 4 to 5 lesser clicks, so you can dial below the 0 stop. Now, just to cover that in a bit more detail, you are supplied with a very detailed instruction book for setting up the 0 stop and also just in the turrets, and there are also 2 Allen keys. Now, although these look very similar, they aren't. One's 1.5mm and the other one is 1.3mm, so just remember which is which and don't throw one away thinking it's just a spare. So once you've actually zeroed the turret and zeroed the rifle scope on your gun, you can slacken off the 3 circumferential screws on here, and it will allow you to just click that back and set 0 position, so you're indicating 0. Now, if you want to set up the 0 stop, it's a little bit more complicated. Slacken all 3 of the screws off, don't remove them completely, and just gently lift the turret cap off, and you'll see there is this red assembly underneath. Now, this is the 0 stop assembly, and there are various circumferential grub screws on this, and the instruction book is very detailed on how to adjust them, and basically lift that up and it clicks against the top, and then you tighten it back on, and then once you've done that, you've got your 0 stop set. Place the outer cap back in position at 0, nip it back up. I'll just do one screw to show you, and then of course you've got your full range of motion, and you can dial immediately back to the 0 position. There is a vernier scale on the back of the turret, so you can see which rotation you are in. The mechanisms within are all hardened steel, so you get a nice defined tactile click when you're dialing, and you don't have any overrun, and you can feel the clicks precisely as well as seeing them on the engraved outer dial. Green, blue, red, red. Oh, it's bobbing around. Parallax adjustment on the left side dials from 50 yards to infinity. Now, that's definitely probably a little bit too long for an airgun. You might get away with it with a rimfire, and of course at the lowest magnification levels you won't notice it as much, but if you do want to use the scope at high magnification all the way up to 24, you will need to make sure parallax is correctly dialed to remove any focal discrepancy from the image. So that's why I would say this is more of a centerfire rifle scope than one for a rimfire or airgun. It is seen here on a rimfire, but this rimfire is one I shoot at quite long distances, so it does suit it because I rarely ever go below 50 yards with it. So it's perfect here, but just think about that when you're applying it to what you want to use and your type of rifle. The internal reticle lights up red, and there are 10 intensity settings available from this left side dial. The outer cap of the dial is removable so you can replace the CR2032 battery, but there is actually a 3-minute auto off function to save battery, so if the scope isn't being used it will shut down, and that's a really great feature. Overall length is 15.3 inches, which is 389 millimeters. Weight is 24.5 ounces, which is 695 grams. Each click is 0.1 milliradians, which is 10 millimeters at 100 meters, and if you have the MOA version, it's quarter MOA clicks. The reticle is called the Athena BPR, and it's a mil reticle on this scope. The box also contains a cleaning cloth as well as the Allen keys, and I did actually get a note with mine because this is supposed to come with flip-up scope caps. Mine was a very early sample, so it does actually have a little note here saying caps are available for them, and the later example should come with them. You get a comprehensive instruction manual on this first focal plane scope that explains everything about the reticle in all sorts of detail, so you've got your fine aim-off solutions which correspond perfectly with the adjustments you've dialed on the turrets. I've box tested this scope, it passes perfectly. I'm very happy using it. With a 30mm tube you've got plenty of space for internal mechanisms as well as decent sized lenses for light transmission. Here are some of the details in the reticle instruction book, which shows you how to measure targets for measuring distance if you know what size they are, and it makes it a great long range scope. You can also have a huge amount of space here for notes, and I do think people who practice with their scopes and write down notes, which used to be called dope or data on previous engagement, generally speaking will do a lot better with their equipment they're using. In the manual itself, all the functions are explained, like the fast focus eyepiece, changing magnification, setting parallax, what parallax does, and of course, as I've explained, how to adjust the turrets correctly for your rifle. Here you can see some of the CAD drawings of the turrets, and it does describe which screws to loosen and which to leave well alone. There are also other assemblies within the turret, and you certainly don't want to dismantle it without having read and follow the instructions, because although it's simple to use once it's set up, it is a complex mechanism and certainly not one you want to be fiddling about with unawares, having not read the instructions. Another factor about this scope which is important is the fact that when you zoom through the magnification range, eye relief isn't varying much at all. It's rated in the instructions at 3.5 to 3.6 inches, which is about 89 to 91 millimeters, and you will hardly notice it. And that's great on a precision rifle. You can spot your shots well through recoil, and it's also not making you have difficulty attaining a full vignette-free sight picture when you're trying to maneuver into position and you've got an awkward supporting structure for the rifle, especially on things like PRS or varminting, where time is against you and you need to get into position. You need that full field of view, crisp and clear immediately, and you haven't got time to fight. The fast focus eyepiece does give you a good crystal reticle picture, so I was very happy using that. The V-shaped mark in the centre of the reticle is perhaps a little bit more appropriate to dynamic shooting steel plates, varminting, things like that, where you're actually engaging dynamic targets and targets with a bit more three-dimensional shape than a plain steel target where you're simply putting a direct crosshair in the centre of a circle. I do actually like it for the more dynamic field shooting, and I used this scope loads when I was out shooting long range balloons, which I actually fly out into position to save on the shoe leather. I was using a trigger cam to record through the scope. If it looks slightly out of focus to you, please don't be concerned about the optic itself, because the primary arm scope does give a crystal clear picture to your eyesight. It's just that when you set up the trigger cam, you don't always get it quite as perfectly focused as you can see immediately with your own eye. Being a 6:24 means the scope has a 4 times magnification ratio, and the same can be said for the exit pupil, which goes from 2.2mm to 8.8mm between high and low magnification. Field of view goes from 25.2 feet wide to 4.2 feet wide as you dial from 6 up to 24 times magnification. Overall windage adjustment is 11.8 milliradians. Overall elevation adjustment is 17.7 milliradians. That translates to 40 minutes of angle or 60 minutes of angle if you go for the MOA version of this scope. This one I'm using today is in milliradians, which just happens to be my preference. The scope is fully waterproof and fog-proof, all the lenses are multi-coated. The use of steel for the internal mechanisms is very reassuring, and I think that goes a long way to say why Primary Arms do offer a lifetime warranty on this scope, which gives a good clear scope picture, and I'm very happy using for long-range shooting. All the box tests have performed well, and the scope's dial adjustment have been fantastic. The only mistake I made is I forgot to set the zero stop before I took it in the field the first time I used it, and I did find myself having to aim low on some of the targets at shorter ranges. Well, I hope you've enjoyed that review. Please like, subscribe, comment, and don't forget to click the notification bell so you can keep up with our regular reviews and uploads. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.